The opinions expressed on the following program are strictly those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of WCZT, Regional Media, Coastal Broadcasting, personnel, or advertisers. This broadcast of Money Talk with Melanie was previously recorded. Money Talk with Melanie brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from beautiful Wildwood, New Jersey. It is gorgeous weather this entire week here in Wildwood, New Jersey, and it is just about the last week of summer. Aww. Now, I will tell you that those of us who live near the shore, at the shore, we really don't say "aw" at the end of the summer because we have this beautiful thing called local summer. And it's not that we don't love you all and your money when you come and spend money in our area and at our resorts and enjoy yourselves and have a good time. But when you leave, we have local summer where we get to enjoy non-crowded venues and all of our beaches, just kind of all to ourselves. So for those of you who are locals, happy almost local summer to you. And for those of you who have visited the lovely Cape May County area, the Wildwood area, thank you for visiting us and patronizing all of our small businesses and really making our economy thrive. We appreciate you very much. Tonight's episode, we will have two new guests, of course. Zack Ballinger, who's a career development expert, is going to discuss how we can overcome career obstacles. I think we can all use help with that. And then in hour two, we will have Brian Boyd, who will discuss how to replace your income, a lawyer's guide to finding, funding, and managing real estate. Excited to have him on the show as well because he says it's a good time to buy real estate, and I have questions because I do not think it is. So we'll see. But before we get to that, I think one of the biggest things in the news this week is probably the President Biden's, I guess it's going to be an executive order. I'm not sure exactly how he's going to make this happen without Congress or whether or not it's even legal, but student loan forgiveness is a thing now, and it's supposed to be put into effect, I believe, sometime in October. And I'm sure you all have some questions about how that is going to work. What do you know? How are you going to qualify? How do you apply for it? Things like that. So, like I said, the Biden administration is going to cancel. It's going to total $1.6 trillion of federal student loan debt. So remember that, just right off the top of my head, that this does not include your personal loans. And anybody who's had student loans probably knows that typically when you get them, you have a federal part and then you have maybe some personal loans that are included in there. This only applies to federal loans only, and up to 43 million borrowers can expect relief, and 20 million of those are expected to have their remaining federal student loan balance completely erased. So that means that 2 million borrowers won't find any relief. I think the cutoff is $125,000. It's being referred to as a targeted student debt plan. I'm not going to talk about right now anyway whether or not they should have done this. I'm just going to give you the quick and dirty on how it's going to work. So if you're a borrower with an annual income during the pandemic of under $125,000 for individuals and $250,000 if you're married or a head of household, you'll be eligible for up to 10 grand in relief, right? If you're a borrower under the same income caps, but you received a Pell Grant in college, you'll be eligible for up to $20,000 in debt cancellation. I don't know why that. I mean, the theory is if you were eligible for a Pell Grant, then you were particularly in need of assistance. I guess that's the best way to put that. But the thing that I find curious about that is it would seem that you are no longer in that situation, so why do you get more debt cancellation? I don't personally get that, but okay. I don't get a lot that the government does. So, now the Department of Education already has data from 8 million borrowers thus far. Additional details about student loan forgiveness are expected to come in the coming weeks. So that's what we know so far about student loan forgiveness. How do you know whether or not you qualify for a Pell Grant or whether or not you got a Pell Grant? One way, if the education department doesn't have your income data, which it would be amazing if they didn't. They usually do have that kind of stuff. Then you'll need to wait for the administration to launch the application process, which they said will be available in the coming weeks, sometime before the repayment pause ends on December 31st. And then the Department of Education also has a form that you can fill out on their website. So that's also kind of convenient. So they're not giving out super details, but those are some of the things that you have to consider if you're going to apply for student loan forgiveness. I would recommend just going directly to the Department of Education website to get all the details and see when you can apply. But the application, I read the other day, will not be available until sometime in October. So just cool your jets and kind of wait around. Another thing that the Biden administration is doing is we're no longer getting free at-home COVID tests. Coming this Friday, they're going to stop that process because the program hasn't been financed, which is really, my mind is a little blown by this. Not that they're stopping it, but the reason why they're stopping it is because Congress didn't fund any more kits for free COVID tests. Quite honestly, I did not know that they were still doing that. Like, I thought that was a one-off and that they were done. But you are still able to request free at-home COVID tests, much like anything the government does. I don't understand it. So let's say you're having symptoms and then you go to apply for a free COVID test. I feel like you'll be halfway through COVID by the time it gets there. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But after Friday, no more free COVID tests. So you have a couple more days to go ahead and order your free COVID test if you want to have one on hand, just in case you feel like you got the vid. You can get tested. One more thing before we go to break and bring on our first hour guest. If you did not have the privilege of having financial literacy courses in high school, and you're wondering, how can I manage my personal finances better? Well, of course, the first thing you should be doing is subscribing to Money Talk with Melanie as a podcast, anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. That's number one, because you'll get all kinds of very valuable information. But the second thing that you can also do, I can recommend to you, via NBC News actually had an article that listed for free free personal finance courses that can set you up for financial success in 3 hours or less. So I thought this was really a good amount of information to pass on. Udemy, spelled UDMY, has a ton of online educational sources covering various financial topics. One good one to check out is Personal Finance 101, everything you need to know. Then there is Skillshare. Skillshare has a course called My Financial Mountain, Understanding Your Path to a Solid Financial Foundation. Also really good. It's you can subscribe to it for $168 a year. And if you think about how much money you would save just by knowing the important things to do and the basics of personal finance, I think you're probably doing pretty good with that. Next is Allison's Introduction to Managing Your Personal Finance Debts. And Allison is spelled with one L. It's short for Advanced Learning Interactive Systems Online. And you can try that one in 1.5 to 3 hours. You can learn how to manage your debt responsibly. And then last but not least is Coursera, which is spelled Coursera. They have a course called Create a Budget with Google Sheets. So you can check that out as well. Your budget is the foundation. That's where you're going to absolutely start. So these are some really credible sources. I thought I would share that with you. You can check them out. And of course, always listen to Money Talk with Melanie each and every week on Wednesdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So we are going to go to a break, and when we come back, we will have our first guest for the evening, Zack Ballinger. He's a career development expert. He's going to discuss overcoming your career obstacles. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
This broadcast of Money Talk with Melanie was previously recorded. Money Talk with Melanie brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm very excited to have for the first hour Zack Ballinger. He's a career development expert and is going to discuss with us overcoming career obstacles. A bit about Zack Ballinger. For more than 14 years, he has been motivating individuals and audiences of all ages at high schools, colleges, nonprofit organizations, civic groups, and corporations through his presentations, seminars, videos, podcasts, books, and articles. On the stage and from his heart, Zack brings a passion for purpose that is infectious and undeniable. As a motivational and TEDx speaker, author, and career consultant, he guides people to self-discovery that changes their lives. Zack holds a bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Tennessee and resides in Atlanta, Georgia. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the show Zack Ballinger.
Hey, Melanie, thanks so much for having me. This is a great opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I'm very excited to have you because I feel like so many people are going through this transformation, particularly post-COVID, or I guess I shouldn't say post-COVID. It's still out there lurking. But post like shutdown and all that kind of stuff, people are just discovering, like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, whatever it is. Whatever it is they were doing. And by the way, as a TED Talk nerd, very excited to see you were a TED Talk speaker. That's on my bucket list of things to do.
It was a great experience for sure, but you're exactly right. We're in this era where I've never seen anything like this. People are really starting to question, well, do I really want to do this the rest of my life? Am I in the right career? Is this the right career path for me? Am I being developed in my career? And I think another thing, what it's taught us, what kind of work environment do you want to be in? Do you want to go into office? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to be outside doing things? And so it's really been a game changer, too. I think another thing, Melanie, that's great is I've never seen an opportunity like this right now. The job market is hot, and it's still going to be hot for a while. And I just see so many opportunities where people that needed 5 to 10 years of experience in a certain line of career field, they're now getting jobs because the labor market's so short. And so people just need some reliable talent to be able to show up. So you're right. It is a very exciting time for careers.
It really is. And I think that a pandemic, something about a worldwide pandemic that just makes you realize that life can be short and unpredictable. And you know what? What do I really want to do with my time on this side of the earth? You know what I mean? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you make a great point. It's because, a lot of during these lockdowns, people realize how short life is. They may have lost a couple of family members during this time, or, they've seen everything shut down. They've seen a world, and it kind of makes you reflect when you're at home and you have nothing else to do. You have to do some self-reflection instead of just watching Netflix all day and eat popcorn. That you might actually want to do something that you really love to do in a career field. So I think you're exactly right. The pandemic's made us think a lot differently about work and careers and jobs, for that matter.
For sure. Now, there are some people, it's weird, we have a low unemployment rate right now, but we have a ton of people who are also not working. And I'm not sure what the reason is. And anybody who knows how the unemployment rate is calculated, the labor participation rate is critical in the calculation of the unemployment rate. And it doesn't consider how many people are actually looking for work, how many people have removed themselves from the employment market. So it can make the employment rate look like it's a lot the unemployment rate look like it's a lot lower than it is. So I think there are people who are out of work. There are people who are out of work and have no intentions of going back to work until the government stops giving them money, probably. But if somebody's out of work and is actually looking for a job, do you have some advice for them as far as where they should look, some things that they should consider besides money?
It's a great question. I think if you lose your job and you have to put food on the table, I always tell people, I'm all about finding work you love and going down your passion, aligning your strengths, your abilities, and your talents, and funneling that into a career. But I think if something happens like an emergency where you lose your job and you have to put food on the table, then you have to cover your basics. So can we drive with Uber? Can we get a gig in the economy? Can we pick up some extra hours? So it's survival mode first. And then while we're doing that, we can look for our passion in our career. So what I would challenge people to do, let's say you're sitting there and you find yourself out of work. You've lost your job. Maybe you've been laid off or you've been out of the work. Get something that you can get a stable income for a little while. Drive Uber, deliver pizzas, do something like that. Let's get your income on the table. And then we can work on the career side. What do you want to do? What have you always dreamed about doing? I always try to take people back to their past. When you're in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, what was your dream career? A lot of times our dreams are right in our mirror and we can't see it. Ask others what your strengths are, what your abilities are, what your talents are. Make a list. Start writing those down. What kind of work environment do you want to work in? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? What's a dream? What are your strengths? And pull those from your inner network and start answering some of these big questions. Melanie, I think the biggest thing for Americans, we don't spend a lot of time on career development. We don't ask ourselves questions. We don't read books. We don't devolve into this. And I think we have to start spending some time on our career side in order to balance everything out.
Oh, I agree with you. I think we'll get into a mode where we're looking for a job and we really don't consider whether or not it's a good job for us, whether or not it's something you're going to enjoy, or really just looking into the details of the job. Like, what is it really like? Like, for instance, I'm a classroom teacher, public school teacher, and there was so much that I did not know before I became a public school teacher that I probably would have done something else, to be honest, had I really understood the environment. And that is on me because I didn't do enough research. And I think that's probably fairly common, that people don't do enough research about a particular career before they get into it.
Yeah, and in this country, I don't think we do a good job. Melanie, you do a lot of great things on finances, but 2 reasons people go to school or go to college is to make money and 2, to get a job. And yet somehow we lack curriculum in the high schools and college about this most important thing, those 2 big ones. And what happens is a lot of people don't know that there's about 821 career pathways in North America. That's a lot of different career pathways. There's even career pathways out there that haven't been invented, businesses yet to be discovered. And what happens is when we get in that high school, college age, we just say, well, we're going to be a teacher. Okay, well, let's look at that. Do you want to teach kids? Because the teaching, I'm a teacher. I love to teach. Teaching is my strength. But if you look at teaching, there's so many different. Do you want to be a corporate trainer? Do you want to be a presenter? Do you want to be a motivational speaker? Do you want to be a teacher in a classroom? Do you want to be teaching corporate executives? So I think we have to start building on these strengths and really start learning about more of these career pathways that are out there that I do a great job on my show, exposing career pathways where a lot of college students say, wow, I didn't even know that kind of career existed before. And we're not learning that at an early age.
It's so very true. Now, one of the things I do in my other life, the things what I teach is actually financial literacy, and I do teach that, believe it or not. Now, whether or not my students listen is a whole nother ballgame. And there's only 13 states that require financial literacy as a course, which is a shame because it's very much needed. Financial lit and economics should be taught together. Like, I think they should be back to back, in my opinion. Because if you don't, it's great to know personal finance, but if you don't understand the economy, and specifically the economy that you live in, then you're kind of not helping yourself. You only have part of the story. That's just just my opinion. But you're right. I do. One of the things that I teach is how to find the right job, how to do skills assessments on yourself, and find out what you enjoy and that kind of thing. We actually, that is part of a financial literacy curriculum, but not enough states or school districts or whatever require that curriculum, and it's really a shame. So what do you do, and I think this is very prevalent from what I read regularly, if you find yourself in a toxic work environment, how do you deal with that? Or you get in a job and you just don't like it?
Yeah, so let's deal with the toxic first, because a lot of times what I found is talking to people, they may say, I hate my job. And then if you start peeling back the onion, they don't really hate the job function. They actually love their job, but they don't like their manager. Or they're in a very toxic work culture. And one of the things I challenge people to do is remove themselves from that environment. Start looking around. Start proactively updating your resume. Start networking. Start really getting out there. Because if the culture is toxic, that's going to be a long fix, a long problem. It's going to require a lot of momentum. Now, and I also encourage people too, if they have a boss that they don't like, maybe sit down and have a meeting with them, talk to them. Now, you don't want to go and attack them and start fighting with them, but you can say, hey, I just want to talk to you about, some of the things that have made me feel uncomfortable, how things could improve around me. I really do love my job, but here are some of the issues and the problems and the challenges that I have, and I wanted to get your feedback. Based on that conversation, you can kind of say, well, look, my boss, my manager, he or she, he's willing to help and work with me, really understand me, or he's like, too bad, this is the way it is. That's when you know you definitely need to leave the company. Now, if you wake up and you don't like your job, that's not uncommon. Our strengths and our weaknesses reveal themselves over our lifespan. So, for example, when I first got out on the marketplace, I really loved sales. I loved selling stuff to people, and I enjoyed that. I love having the conversation, be able to solve a need. But after 10 years, I got sick of it. And I woke up one day and I was miserable in my job. And that's going to happen to you at some point. And it's really starting to find that, like what you talked about, that self-discovery piece. What are we good at? What have been a consistent theme in our careers? What kind of environments have we enjoyed working? What kind of conversations do you want to have? Is there a problem in the world that you see that you may want to fix? And if you start asking these questions, maybe it was always a business idea, but I always challenge people first. Is there a role at your current company that you always dreamed about doing? Maybe you're in sales now, but you've always dreamed about being in a logistics field. Start asking people, can you pick their brain for a few minutes? Can you talk to them, network with people in that company? Now, the second thing is if you've always had a small business idea or a dream, do it as a side hustle, as a part-time hobby. Do that and supplement it with your job. Who knows, Melanie? You may look over, and in a few months, you may be making more money in that part-time job than your full-time job. And then it's time to transition. So those are just a few ways.
Yep, and those are such good suggestions. And I think sometimes people don't, I so agree with you about liking the task, but not liking the environment. I feel very much that way about teaching. And I think that a lot of teachers feel that way. All across the country, there's such a huge teaching shortage. And I think that's really what the problem is. I think many people love many people who are in teaching anyway, love the thrill of that idea, like going on in a kid or helping somebody to understand something that they didn't before is a great feeling. But it's the rest of it that gets to people. It's the rest of it that can be kind of toxic. And it's a shame.
It is. And, Melanie, I've worked with a lot of teachers, and, it's scary to admit this, but I'll go ahead and admit it on your show that I've even worked with people that are career services directors at colleges who say, I can't stand this job anymore. And so they get burned out, but really they just need to be refreshed. Maybe they needed a new scene. Maybe they needed a new team. Maybe they needed a new challenge. And I think for teachers, it's a really tough job. And I admire every teacher out there because it is a higher calling, I believe. It is a passion. And those teachers, like you said, they love their job, but maybe you just change it, maybe a change of a scenery of a school district, maybe secondary education, maybe it's some other little thing that you kind of thought about. But I would encourage you, if you're comfortable being in a bad environment, get uncomfortable quick.
Yes, if you are, and that is very true. But if you're uncomfortable being in a bad environment, that can lead to other things like, physical. How can I put this? Like physical signs that you are stressed. Like if you try to accept the toxicity of your environment, a lot of times it'll manifest itself in different ways. When there are literally no boundaries, you can't trust the people that you work with. Like they're so nobody can make mistakes. If you make a mistake, there's foolishness from your boss. I mean, I've had so many incidents, at least at my particular job, where it's like, no, I can't. There's nobody I can trust. Like, seriously. So because when people are screenshotting your social media and sending it to your principal, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
That's a problematic environment, right?
Yeah. And I came from somebody like that. So I actually have a disability. I have Meniere's disease. And it took a while, but the doctors diagnosed me at 12, and I've lost 50% of my hearing.
Oh, wow.
And I went to see a doctor, and I've been through many failed surgeries and pills and everything like that. And we kind of sat down, and I'll make a long story short, but he said, "How much stress do you have in your life, Zach?" And I said, "Well, that's kind of a stupid question. We all have stress. What do you mean by that?" And he said, "I think you have so much in your current job." And I hated it. I didn't like it. I just was going to stay with it. And he said, that stress is exasperating your medical condition.
Oh.
And I never thought about that. And so I decided one day that I was going to make a change and be happy in my life, be happy in my career. And it really did do wonders for my health. So to your point, your job, your career, if you hate it, it's going to take physical and mental stress. It will take years off your life. And you probably know that, just like you said, being in some of these really hard circumstances in life.
For real. Now, you wrote, Don't Be a Zombie, How to Find a Career You Love. So if there's somebody who's in that situation now, they're like, I'm in a job that I really don't like. I'd like to find something that I actually enjoy doing. That would be that would be lovely. You wrote that, and I'm sure you had a reason for why you wrote that, and some great advice on how people can do that.
Yeah, I wrote the book because I started teaching around colleges and nonprofits, and I was teaching on job interviewing, but people were saying all these things, and I realized they didn't like what they were doing, or they were in the wrong major, or they hated their jobs. How do I change? So it was really a help for people out there to. It's broken down into 3 easy steps. Discover, dream. We start talking about your strengths, and then we develop. What are your strengths? What are your abilities? And I give you tangible things to do. And then the third step is, how do you deliver on these things? So I give you a 30-day journal, what to do, step by step, day by day, building these networks and contacts. Just a couple of quick things is, if you think you're interested in a career and you want to shift, let's say you've always dreamed about owning a dry cleaning business, or you've always wanted to be an engineer, wouldn't it be nice to talk to somebody in those career fields before going full board, maybe before quitting your job and going taking those classes? Let's talk to somebody in that business. Let's network with them. Let's get our LinkedIn profiles up. Let's talk to our friends and our families. Let's visit those businesses. Let's find somebody in those careers, and let's actually step into the life of the day of that person. So, Melanie, I know a lot of teachers that have job shadowed in teaching, and they're like, okay, I can't do this.
Oh, yes. I know people, too, who started or they student taught, and they were like, oh, my goodness, this is not what I thought it was. And I will tell you, it's not entirely teacher's fault. You have to talk to another teacher, because I'm telling you, in teacher schools, they bury a lot of the leads. Just just saying. I'm just
Right.
saying there's a lot that they don't tell you about the profession that you just don't know until you get there. Like you think you're just gonna, you're gonna walk into a classroom and all the little cherubs are gonna be sitting there with their hands folded, just willing and waiting to learn. And that is not exactly how it works.
And that's what's fun about, that's what's the beauty about networking and talking with other individuals, not just relying on somebody, but really job shadow. Get in there and get in the trenches and see if you would actually love it. Another idea that I have is answer these 3 questions. If money were no object, what would you want to do with your career? What do you want to be when you grow up? And then finally, what are your strengths and your hobbies? Is there a hobbies that you could translate into your career? I know some people I talk to, they love shooting pictures, and all of a sudden now they have a photography business. Is there something in there we can trigger to find you a great career out of?
Exactly. And is that what you mean? Actually, we have 1 minute left. I probably shouldn't go into this question. I feel like it's going to be bigger, talking about passion and purpose. I think it's probably different for everyone, right? So we'll talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My guest this hour is Zack Ballinger. He's a career development expert, and we're talking about how to overcome career obstacles, how to find a career that you love. Many of us are in this transition where we're thinking, you know what, I don't want to do this for the rest of my born days. I need to do something else. So Zack Ballinger is helping us to decide, to figure out how we can find a career that we love instead of being zombies at work. And I'm loving it. Again, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. On 98.7 The Coast.
This broadcast of Money Talk with Melanie was previously recorded. Money Talk with Melanie brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest this hour is Zack Ballinger, and he is talking to us today about how we can overcome career obstacles. And before the break, we started talking about passion and purpose, and what's the meaning of those things when it comes to our careers. Like how do we determine what we're passionate about, or what our purpose is, or how we can work with purpose?
Thank you so much. I love the question. So your passion is your strengths. You mentioned it, teaching. That's your passion. And so purpose is the vision over your life. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be known for? When you retire, what do you want to say you've done? The vision is a long-term thing, and that's your purpose. Your passions are these strengths, whether it could be tangible or intangible. And so a great example of that is my grandmother. She passed away in 2020. I remember talking to the RN at her nursing home. I'd never seen somebody that passionate about their work, loves patient care, loves the daily grind and helping sick patients. Her purpose, what her purpose was, is she only wanted to be known as someone that helped patients during the end of her life. And you could see that resonate in her work. And that's what the difference is. And that's how the two marry together, is passion and purpose.
That's excellent. And that's good to know, because again, I think a lot of people, especially young people, just look at the money. And I tell students all the time, I'm like, let me tell you something. I don't care how much you make. If you're miserable for 8 hours a day, it is not going to matter. It just isn't. And you don't want to learn, in my opinion, don't want to learn that lesson the hard way. You want to learn that lesson. You want to listen to other people who have been through it and take their advice on that one. That's not something you want to learn 5 years into a job that you're miserable at.
You're absolutely right. You can make a lot of money and be very miserable, and I see it all the time. But also, Melanie, I would challenge students too. A lot of people, even when they get laid off, or they automatically think they're going to take a pay cut And that's just not true. Now, if you think like that, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's probably going to happen. But what if you get laid off and you find a job that you actually love doing? I found a lot of the people that have a lot of money, and not in every case, obviously, but the people that really love their jobs, they make a lot of money too. And so you can marry both. Now, like I said, is everybody going to be a millionaire? No. But I think there's a differentiation that we automatically think that we're going to be broke because we love our job. And that's just not always the case either.
Well, I feel like people expect that out of education. I'll always tell you, like, it's about the kids. I'm like, no, it's about my bills though too. Just
Right. Exactly. Right.
I mean, yeah, it is, but it's also about that mortgage. Let's just be honest here for 1 second. But I mean, that's for real. Now, what are some signs that you love your job, as opposed to, because maybe some of us might be spoiled and don't even realize that we have a job that we love. Like, is it really possible? Or we might just be in an environment that we don't like, but we really love our jobs. How can you kind of differentiate the two?
Yeah, I think the second one is the hardest to differentiate, because if we have that bad boss, or we've been assigned, or we have a big workload, or maybe, whatever that case may be, that might be the issue that you bring to me first. But then we move, like you said, when you start peeling it back, you're like, wait, you actually do love this job. You just don't like who you're working for, or you don't like your company, or your values don't align. So that's really important to understand. But some of the things, if you love your job, if you're excited about Monday, and that sounds kind of crazy, but I actually enjoy Mondays, and I'm weird, I guess, but I actually like my career and I love it. So I view it as almost like my vocation. Like, my vacation is my vocation. So in other words, even when I'm off for a few days, I don't actually mind doing a little bit here and there of tasks, because I actually love what I do. So I don't mind to jump on a podcast or speak at it for a group of students or anything like that. So you can also find that. Also, if you can tell, if you start teaching people your job, people that are passionate and really enjoy their job, they're great teachers of it. So if you're passionate about a nurse, they tend to make the great trainers, because guess what? They're they're teaching you. They're the experts. And those are some of the ways that you do it.
But a light bulb just went on between what you just said and something you said a few minutes ago about people making more money when they love their jobs. Like, at first they think it might be a pay cut, but I think the reason why, I've certainly had jobs like that where my boss asked me to do something and I was like, I'm on it, because I just love solving problems. I love getting things done. And not to mention the intrinsic value of having someone appreciate that you go above and beyond. And I think that's the way you tend to make more money, right? Because your boss appreciates you, gives you a bonus or whatever, because you've been doing a great job all year. At least that's typically how it works in the private sector. The public sector, not so much. But
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. If you love what you do, you're willing to take on more. Your attitude is there. So attitude makes everything. You have a positive attitude and you love it, and you show that you're willing to take on projects, you're willing to collaborate, you'll help out a colleague, you'll help out a different department. Guess what? People are saying, wow, we can't lose that person. They're too valuable to the organization. And that's what corporations think about, is what value can you bring to the corporation? And if you make yourself invaluable, guess what? You're going to always have a job.
That is very true. And at jobs that you don't really feel like you have that intrinsic value, or that have like kind of a toxic environment, you're probably not willing to do anything. You're like, I'm just going to do whatever I have to do while I'm on the clock, and I will do nothing more than that. And it's human nature, because why would you, if you feel unappreciated, why would you if no one says thank you when you go above and beyond? What's your incentive? You don't make more money. Nobody says thank you. Nobody really appreciates what you're doing. Why would you make more money? How could you make more money under those circumstances?
Exactly. And it may be time, if you're starting to think like that, it's definitely time to start moving on and trying to find the next career. Because you've already, like you said, you're in an environment where you don't feel like you can win. It's time to find an environment where you think you can win.
For sure. Now, you refer to being a zombie in your career. What does that look like, being a zombie?
So it's somebody, and I found these out. That's where my TED Talk centered around. I found these people all out there. I found them in college because I talked to a guy who said he wanted to be a dentist. And then I asked him why you want to be a dentist. And he said, I don't know. My parents want me to be a dentist. I don't really want to be a dentist. And then I talked to somebody a few states away, and they said, hey, I've been working at the same profit job for 20 years, punching a time clock. I just want to ride it out. I've got another 15 years. I don't really like it. I don't enjoy it, but I'm just going to ride it out. And then you walk over here and you feel somebody that maybe they had started a business, but they're burnt out and they're going through the motions and they hate it. Those are what I call work-life zombies. They get up every day. They're programmed, like little computer robots. They know to wake up at 7 a.m. on Mondays. They can't wait, and they celebrate Fridays, and they're ready to bust through that office, get in that car, and they live for the weekends. They don't live for the week. But guess what? Our life is short, and if you only live for the weekends and you don't live for the weeks, you've really wasted a lot of your life, and that's what I don't want people to do.
And you're so right. And people who don't like their jobs tend to be less productive at them. At least that's been my observation. They just tend to not
100%.
be as good at them because they don't like their job. And it could be because of the environment. It could be because they actually don't like the tasks involved. But I think you don't get into a job unless you think that you're going to like the task, and a lot has to do with environment.
Absolutely. 100% correct.
But an optimistic job that you like, you're going to be optimistic, right? You're going to perform better. You're probably not going to make as many mistakes.
And it's a spillover effect, too. What happens is if you love your job and you love your Monday through Friday job or whatever days it is, it's a spillover effect. So you become more productive on the weekends, I feel. I think I've talked to so many people that are depressed. They hate their job. And guess what? The first thing they do when they get home on Friday, they order that pizza. They binge watch Netflix for the whole weekend. Their weekends pass by. They haven't done anything on career development. They haven't done anything for their finances. They haven't been involved in their family. So it is a spillover effect. And then it wears on our life, like we talked about before. It's mental. It's physical. It starts to wear on you. So that's why it's so important to really enjoy what you do.
It is very important. It's important to just have that positive mindset. At least in my opinion, it definitely is. And your opinion too. One of the things, and I don't know if people who are out here are having the same struggle, is I remember I don't like being mediocre, right? Like if you're used to doing a good job and you're used to being a rock star, it is very hard to work in an environment where people don't come with that same energy, right?
Yes. Very.
Right, where people don't have that same passion, they don't have that same energy, and it's very hard to keep your energy up when the entire environment kind of feels icky.
Absolutely. And that's a part of that corporate environment, that culture. And it may even be a nonprofit where people are burnt out and they're just work. And it's very hard to keep that sustainable. If you're the only one passionate when there's 100 people in the office, that's going to be pretty hard to maintain long term. And so can we find a better culture to fit your strengths, or is it something that we need to pursue outside of that organization?
For sure. Now, how do you recognize when you're burnt out? I think some people, especially if you're in zombie mode, right, you may not recognize that you're close to burnout, or that you may get burned out, or that you're even burned out already. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's some warning signs to that. And the warning signs are, I think, when you start to see your work decline, on Sundays, if you have that pit in your stomach of dread, you're going to bed that night Sunday, you're tired, but you really don't want to go to bed because you have to wake up to that Monday morning. If it's gotten to that point and you're having physical signs, you're having headaches, you're stressed out, you're nervous, you're on a bunch of medications, those are clear-cut warning signs something is drastically wrong. Like I said, if you're living for the weekends, if you're just going through there, pushing through your days, that's not what life's about. And I think there is other signs of stress. Is it spilling over to your family's life? Has your temper gotten worse? Have you become a little bit more irritable with your kids or with your spouse? Or is there physical things there? Maybe you've just had a physical at the doctor and they said, hey, your blood pressure's through the roof. Gee, wonder why. Are you exercising? But that blood pressure, that cholesterol, these things that stress us out, is there medical things that are there? And are we withdrawing? Did we used to be extroverts and like talking to people? Now we don't like to talk to people. Well, is that because that we don't like our environment, we don't like our job? So those are some of the warning signs that you can kind of look for.
Those are excellent warning signs. I saw a meme recently on social media that said, sorry I was late. I had a breakdown in the parking lot. And the boss says, oh, is your car okay? And then the person says, oh, car? It's like, I was like, yep, relatable. I was like, okay, maybe stop the tears before I go into my job. Just a little. Right. Had a little breakdown in the parking lot, but I'm good now. It's all good. Yeah, it was actually very funny. I feel like maybe a lot of workers are going through similar stress, and that's why that meme was created. So we're at the close of the hour. Please tell people where they can find, subscribe to your YouTube channel, find your TED Talk, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, the easiest thing, Melanie, is thanks for the opportunity, is go to ZackBallinger.com, ZackBallinger. It's got all of our social media links. It's got what I do, our free YouTube channel, The Zack Ballinger Show, where you can discover new careers. It's got my books and links. Follow us, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Be sure to look out for when this live show is posted as a podcast, and you'll be able to share it with your audiences as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Great questions today.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Zach. You have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
The opinions expressed on the following program are strictly those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of WCZT, regional media, coastal broadcasting, personnel, or advertisers. This broadcast of Money Talk with Melanie was previously recorded. Money Talk with Melanie brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We just concluded our first hour with Zack Ballinger, who helped us to appreciate how we can overcome obstacles in our career, and there can be so many. If you missed it, if you missed the first hour, be sure to check out Money Talk with Melanie when it's posted as a podcast in another day or two right here on 98.7 The Coast's website, or any of your favorite podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts or Blueberry or any Listen Notes. There's a ton of them. You can even ask Alexa if she play the last episode of Money Talk with Melanie, and you can certainly hear it there on Amazon. Our guest for the next hour is going to be Brian Boyd, who's an attorney, and going to discuss how we can replace our income. The book he wrote is called Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding, Funding, and Managing Real Estate. I think this is especially prudent in the environment that we're in now, where interest rates are going up and the economy is pretty shaky. So we're going to talk to Brian Boyd about that in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, there were a couple of articles that I thought you would find interesting and helpful. One is from a website called The Ascent. And they had an article called 5 Ways Americans Waste Money Without Noticing. And this is so very true. So here are some of the key points. It talks about how it's easy to overspend on everyday items that we actually need. So are we spending too much on stuff that we need, on necessities, but they're too expensive? Also, you need to take a look at your expenses, like clothing and food, to see if you might be overspending. I highly recommend using a tracker. My favorite one is Mint.com. It will categorize everything for you. You can, when you open it up, if you connect your debit card, your checking account, or all of your finances to Mint.com, it will give you a nice overview, and it tells you how much you're spending on something as simple as coffee. You'd be surprised how much money you're spending in different places. And sometimes you think, oh, I'm buying everything on sale, so I'm not spending that much. But then when you open up the app, you realize that you were spending way more than you thought. So here are some areas, 5 areas of your budget where this typically happens. One is on fashion. According to a survey at the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, women and girls spend an average of $545 annually on clothes, while men and boys spend $326 annually. And I'm definitely on the $545 side of that. It's terrible. You have to be really careful about how you spend money. But if you are somebody who likes fashion trends and you always want to have the latest thing, you could be throwing money away. That's a lot of money to spend on clothes. So keep track of it so you know how much you're actually spending. A lot of people buy classic pieces that are not going to go out of style in a year or two. I'm definitely in that camp, though. Just, buy something classic that you'll be able to wear all the time. Insurance is another place where people tend to waste money. And of course, if you don't have insurance, if you're walking around, or riding around, I should say, without auto insurance, life insurance, home insurance, you definitely need to take care of that, but you don't want to overspend. So mortgage life insurance is one thing that you can purchase, but it can be expensive. And that's insurance that you get that'll be paid off in the event of your untimely demise. So if you bought a home with a $300,000 balance, the cost of a mortgage life policy worth $300,000 is usually higher than, say, a term life policy that'll have the same death benefit. So you want to go with the term life policy instead of the mortgage life insurance. Collision insurance. Do you really need that if your car has a low Blue Book value? Is paying for collision coverage worth it? Maybe you might want to just switch down to liability insurance to save yourself a couple bucks there. Rental car coverage is another area where people spend money. Often, auto insurance, your auto insurance will have that already coupled in there. So you don't have to double your insurance when you rent a car. Also, a lot of credit card companies will offer that as a benefit. If you rent your car using that credit card, then insurance comes with it. So just be aware of that. Identity theft coverage, check your credit cards to see if they're offering free identity theft coverage. Don't spend your money on that. Groceries. A lot of times we overestimate how much food we need to buy. According to the group Feeding America, 40% of all food in the United States is wasted, as Americans toss out an estimated $408 billion worth of food. That is crazy. So consider it, look at it this way. Even if you are only throwing out $10 worth of food in a week, that's $520 a year. So that's money that you could be saving, you could be putting in a bank, or investing. So don't over purchase when it comes to your food. Number 4, memberships and subscriptions. This is a huge one. And they have some apps that'll help you do this. If you use PayPal for your subscriptions and things like that, it's kind of easy to go through and see what memberships and subscriptions that you have where you're wasting your money. They can really add up. I recently actually did a check on this and got rid of a bunch of stuff. It'll just save you some money. And then last, the home that you buy. And interest rates are going up, so you really want to be particularly careful on the money that you spend on buying a home. Is it appropriate for your lifestyle? Is it something that do you really need a 5-bedroom house if you're just a couple? Just something to think about. You don't think about how much it costs to clean that house, what the utilities are going to cost if you buy too much house or a bigger house than you really need. So those are areas that people overspend, and they don't usually realize they're overspending. I thought there were some really excellent tips, so I thought I'd also share that with you. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. When we come back, we will talk with Mr. Brian Boyd.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
This broadcast of Money Talk with Melanie was previously recorded. Money Talk with Melanie brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We are in the second hour. And our guest of the second hour is attorney Brian Boyd. He's going to discuss the book, Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding Funding and Managing Real Estate Investments. A bit about attorney Brian Boyd. He helps clients with real estate, construction, and other business matters, while at the same time growing his real estate portfolio to a 6-figure income. He earned his JD from Samford University's Cumberland School of Law and an LLM in taxation from Georgetown University Law Center. His newest book is Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding, Funding, and Managing Real Estate Investments. And I'd like to welcome to the show, Brian Boyd.
Thank you for having me, Melanie. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you, especially in this particular market where the real estate is really dicey. They're raising interest rates, and I think that people are kind of shying away from the real estate market. And I also kind of feel like people are anticipating, some economists are anticipating a bubble similar to the 2008 bubble. So it's really kind of a stressful time in the real estate investment arena.
Well, you've mentioned quite a few things in that section. And one, I wouldn't say that real estate is dicey. Right now, with rising interest rates, what I think you're seeing is the unserious investors getting out of the way.
Oh.
But what is that related to? Well, it's related to people that want to keep riding that appreciation wave. And I wouldn't say the market's even softening. What I would say is it's returning to pre-COVID levels. Even with the prices where they are, you're still seeing tremendous appreciation in real estate. So if those that are looking to make a quick buck get out of the way, that's wonderful for people that I work with and for myself. Because I am playing the long game. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is, hey, get in this, manage your money properly, look at the numbers, manage the numbers, and you're going to create legacy wealth for you and your family. So while a lot of economists might be saying gloom and doom is out there, I wholeheartedly disagree. When 2007, 8, and 9 happened, people were buying properties they couldn't afford. Now you don't see that at all. In fact, I read an article this past weekend that said there's $1 trillion tied up in equity right now in properties.
Really?
So, yes. So what does that mean for us? That means your house, your current primary residence, has money tied up in it that you're not tapping to invest elsewhere. Irrespective of investing in real estate, you're not deploying that investment money that you have into the market anywhere. It's just sitting there tied in your house.
Now,
people that I work with want to deploy that into real estate and grow. We do want that appreciation gain. We do want those gains. We do want those profits, and we do want those tax benefits.
okay, that makes sense. Now, how can you tell, what is the difference, I guess, between someone who is kind of investing to get rich and someone who is part of the long game, like you said? You consider yourself as someone who is investing for the long term as opposed to trying to make a quick buck. How can we tell the difference?
Right, and so I think the way you tell the difference is somebody that's looking to get a deal. I'm not looking to get a deal. My deal is going to come over years. I'm willing to possibly pay a little bit more now than what the market would sustain because I know the appreciation of that asset, the depreciation under Section 179 of that asset, the cash flow on rents of that property is going to grow the delta of my equity from the purchase price and my down payment tremendously over 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So what does that mean? That means every property I buy becomes a mini bank for me. So I could tap into that equity and go leverage into another property and scale my investment portfolio. I'm not looking to make a quick buck in cryptocurrency, in meme stocks. That's not me. I'm looking for slow and steady wins the race. I say this to clients all the time: aim small, miss small. Don't go out and buy, that 5-bedroom cabin that you're going to Airbnb hoping you're going to make $1,500 a night. Yeah, you might, but there's also a good chance you might not. I'm looking for that slow and steady rent every month that is going to grow as I hold that property.
Okay.
And that's a long game.
That is definitely a long game. Now, do people say that I kind of opened with it not being a great time to buy real estate, but you say it is a great time to buy real estate, even though the prices are high.
Absolutely. And what I think you're seeing prices return to those pre-COVID levels, while you're not seeing home values, and I'm not talking about your primary residence houses.
You're talking about investment properties.
That is correct. They're softening a little bit. That means that the properties aren't staying on the market for 36, 48 hours. They're staying on 5, 10, 15, 20 days. But what does that mean for the buyer? That means that, we can negotiate the price a little bit. Now we can get into appraisals. Now we can get into inspections. It's no longer buy as is. This is the price. I'm taking, 20 offers the next 24 hours, and I'm going to pick the highest and best, and you're going to get whatever I give you. That's not what we're looking at right now. We're looking at true negotiation again, and that's wonderful for the buyers.
It's good for the buyers. Okay, now I shouldn't say I always thought, but I was thinking, at least currently, that it wasn't great for the buyers because a lot of people are getting priced out of the market. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Like, I'm not sure how affordable it is for people to buy homes because the prices are so high. Now, that's just applies to the primary market and not the investment market.
I think that's where the differentiation is that people are saying, I can't afford to buy. They can't afford to buy their primary residence. But when I'm talking about buying, I'm talking about investments that you can easily buy. In fact, my law partner just bought a duplex about an hour and a half from Nashville. He bought that duplex for $42,500.
What?
Yes.
Where is this?
It's here in Tennessee.
Where is this? And why am I not looking in that market to buy some property? What's going on?
And he's going to rent out each side for $800.
Of course, right.
That's a win. That is a home run grand slam out of the gate.
Well, yeah, that's huge. But
yes.
Where?
So where? That's right. So I always advise people, don't buy in the major markets. There's no meat left on the bone in the major markets. I don't buy in Middle Tennessee. I don't buy in Nashville. I buy in the other cities. I buy in Chattanooga. I buy in Knoxville. I buy in Jackson. I buy outside of Memphis. I buy where people, basically bedroom communities. I buy where people live. So they drive into work and they drive home. That's where they live because that's where they can afford to live. Now, my model is I want to provide healthy, safe, affordable homes for people. If you live in Nashville, the average price of a house in Nashville is $800,000.
Oh, my word.
Nobody can afford that. Nobody can afford that.
Right.
So what I want to do is I want to provide people with housing that is safe, secure, and affordable for them. You draw a circle about 25 miles outside of any city center, like in Nashville, and then you start looking out there. And that's what he did. We sat down one day, we got a map out, and I said, within this circle, this is where you need to look. This is your target zone. And so for him, it's an hour and a half outside of Nashville, and he found a grand slam. And you know, he's off to the races.
Yeah, that's a huge grand slam. And I guess you really have to also have the patience and understand what you're looking for.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that because he actually bid on this property and lost the bid. And you mentioned the interest rates going up. The interest rates went up, so the winner of that bid, his loan went up.
Of course.
So his deal fell apart. My partner got a call from his agent. The agent said, hey, that deal fell apart. They want you to resubmit the bid. He went in with a lower bid than he initially bid.
Oh, wow.
And he won the deal.
Wow. Okay. That was very smart.
There are deals out there, but he was patient. He didn't go and buy the next property. He waited. He wanted the right property. He knew what he was looking for, and he got it under budget for him.
Now, was this a tax sale, sounds like?
No, it was not.
Really?
It was not a tax sale. Not at all.
This was just a regular house that was up for sale?
It's a duplex. Yeah, it was just a duplex for sale. In fact, we found it on Realtor.com.
That's wild.
I know. They are out there, though. They are out there.
That's wild. I got to put that on my to-do list. I actually asked recently, maybe the beginning of the summer, one of my I have tons of real estate friends, as you might imagine, in this business. And I was thinking about doing a little house hack. I was thinking about moving and doing same thing, a duplex, living in one side and renting the other part out. But there's where I live in a resort area in Cape May, New Jersey, and there's hardly any available property. But that's, a lot, where I live is a lot of people's second homes and things like that. So that's like not a lot of primary residents per se around here. Yeah. So I think what you're saying would work really well in an area like this is to kind of look out. Well, if you do 25-mile radius, you'll be in the ocean where I live. But if I move, I literally live in the peninsula of New Jersey in Cape May. So I have to move up some and then do a 25-mile radius and look and see what's going on in the market there. But it's in these kinds of areas, it's a little bit tough because, like I said, a lot of people have second homes here. Seasonal homes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so what I encourage people to look for are those areas where people really need affordable housing. One of our portfolios is down in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we bought in 2019, on average, when we bought that portfolio, we put a portfolio together and purchased it. We were paying about $40,000 a house.
Wow. And
we've cash flowed the entire time. The lowest rent we have, and we still have this elderly lady in there now, she pays $600 a month. But we just had that portfolio appraised. Those houses, the cheapest house in that portfolio is worth $120,000 now.
Wow. And you mentioned earlier that the prices of the homes are probably not going to go back down. They're not going to dip. Even with interest rates kind of rising and inflation and the state of the economy, you still feel that way?
I feel that way completely. For example, and I'll just use another property in our portfolio that we bought this portfolio or this house. It's a duplex in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We bought it December of 2020. So COVID was in full swing. Prices were starting to escalate. We bought it for $183,000, and it did not appraise. We had to take cash to closing to close on this deal. That property now in 2022 is worth $300,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now, is the urge to or the temptation to flip it always out there, or do you think hang on to it so that it'll just continue to appreciate? Like, what kind of strategy do you use in that situation with this kind of market? I feel like we're in a unique space economy-wise because of the global pandemic and because we kind of have another one that's emerging and the other one's not really done yet. You know, all of these complications that we have.
Right. So for my business model, my wife and I, we have tapped into that equity. So that property that we bought for $183,000, we put 25% down. That has paid for itself the entire time. We've cash flowed the entire time, positive. And now we're borrowing from that equity to go buy more properties. So as long as that portfolio pays for itself and then some, we're going to keep it. It's almost like infinite banking because the tenants are covering the debt service on it, and we're using that delta of equity to purchase and leverage up. So we're scaling our business by using that equity. Why would I ever sell it if it's making money? And I tell this to people all the time. If I'm making $100 a door every month, that's $100 I'm not working for. That's debt service I'm not having to pay because rents are paying that, and I'm making a profit of $100 a month.
Exactly right.
That's less time that I have to work at my job.
And that's the key. Passive income is the key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you get away from the mindset of trading your time for a dollar amount, whether it's $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $40 an hour. You start thinking on a different scale, and that's how you start to break away from the 9-to-5 desk job or the grind out there. And then you start scaling that, and you scale it, and you scale it, and you scale it. I can't tell you of any property I have that is worth less today than when I bought it. I don't have one.
Interesting. And with the market being as volatile as I feel like it's volatile anyway right now, or at minimum not doing well, real estate investing is probably the best place to go, as opposed to...
I think it's very safe. I agree with you. I think it's completely safe. And here's why. When the 2007, 8, 9, and 10 meltdown happened, right, we saw... AIG failed, Lehman Brothers went under, Salomon Brothers went under, major banks are going under. There's a giant financial crisis. That was fueled by the mortgage-backed securities the mortgages were being given to people who couldn't afford. Congress went in and legislated that out. Now you have to put money into a property to buy it. There are no more what they call, quote unquote, liar loans out there. You have to put money into a property. So if you buy a property today, and let's just use easy numbers, you buy a $100,000 property. The bank is going to require you to put something down on that. So let's say you buy a $100,000 property. Well, okay, maybe the market softens a little, but that $100,000 property is not going down to $50,000. It might go down to $95,000, but it's not going down to $50,000 because you've got equity into that property, and the market has now accounted for that. And so it's built into the price now.
Okay.
And again, this is not a get rich quick. This is slow and steady is going to win this race.
Okay, so and I think most people who present real estate investing, they're like, you can make money really fast. You can do it really quickly. Now, is there a book that you use? Is there a format that you use to make sure that you are finding properties that are worth investing in? Like it sounds like you kind of want to stay in the middle, so to speak. Like you don't want to go necessarily into neighborhoods where it's not a great neighborhood. Like maybe the investment is really low because the neighborhood is not fantastic.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. We call them war zones. And
I was trying to find a diplomatic word for that, but that's good.
It's the real estate term for it. They're called war zones. So we have 2 properties on the same street. And this street, after dark, I don't want to be there. But we looked at these properties and we thought, you know what? We have 2 properties on, opposing ends of the street. Let's force appreciate the street. So what we did, we went in, re-sided the houses, re-roofed them, did a complete turn on the inside, new kitchens, new bathrooms, new appliances, and we raised rents on those properties. Those are the 2 best looking properties on that street. So now that we have raised rents, we have tenants in those properties that are happy to be there. They're taking care of the properties. That kind of ownership of the tenant is spilling over into the neighbors. And they want their yards to look as nice as these yards. So you're starting to create some ownership in these neighborhoods that previously were war zones. And we've taken the rents in that area and we've moved them up. We haven't moved them up to where they're no longer affordable. We've moved them up to what we consider market, and we do a study on that, and that's how we figured out what we could charge. But at the same time, we also reached out to the local police department and said, hey, we have investments on this property. Please drive this street a couple of times a day. Monitor the street. And so now we're in communication with the police department. We're talking to the zoning committee. We're talking to the mayor's office. We are starting to, for lack of a better term, clean up the street a little bit.
Well, no, I hear exactly what you're saying, and those strategies are very good. I encourage people all the time when it comes to politics and policy that your municipality is the start of where all that stuff gets done. It's not really the state or the federal government. Your local municipality is where you get all that stuff done, and that's an incredibly smart move on your part.
One of the things that I want everybody to understand is that if you invest in real estate, you're an active investor like I am. You have an obligation to your tenants. You have an obligation to the community you're in. You're a property owner. Take that role and be serious with it. If there's crime on that street, what can you do about it? If that house has something wrong with it, jump on that problem and fix it. Make it better than it was. We're providing housing to people that need housing. We're providing housing to people that go to work every day. They just want to raise their family and have a safe place to live. That's what we're doing. And yes, there's a benefit to me and my family because of that, but we're also benefiting the community. And I think it's really important to understand, yes, there's a profit goal in mind, but we're also building a community in where we're working and where we're investing.
That makes so much sense. We have to go to a break, but I want the audience to know that you're listening to Brian Boyd, who is an attorney and real estate investor, and is helping us to understand how we can replace our income through real estate investing. The name of the book is Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding, Funding, and Managing Real Estate Investments. And we will be back and continue talking to Brian Boyd on the other side of the break.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
This broadcast of Money Talk with Melanie was previously recorded. Money Talk with Melanie brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. On 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest this hour is Brian Boyd. He's an attorney and the author of the book, Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding, Funding, and Managing Real Estate Investments. So we are speaking to him about ways that you can actually do that, replace your income with real estate investments. I'm taking notes, I'm just saying. And I have done this theme before, just from different angles. We've done this on the show, but this is, I thought that a lot of things wouldn't apply because of the interest rate thing and because we're kind of sort of we're in a recession. At least according to the textbook definition of recession. And so that it wouldn't be, it wouldn't necessarily be possible, but Mr. Boyd is helping us to appreciate that it still is possible and kind of now's the time to get on it.
Absolutely. And, as it relates to the interest rates rising, they're going to come back down again. But at the same time, also understand that if the interest rates keep going up, okay, not a problem. It's a Section 163 deduction to me. I'm not terribly concerned about it. And as long as I'm charging rents that can cover my note and I still make a little bit of a profit every month, it doesn't matter, because eventually when those rates come back down, I'm just going to refinance anyway.
Oh my gosh, right.
I mean, why wouldn't I?
Right.
And if anybody out there thinks that their home is going to be worth less in 5 years, I would ask them to look back over history and show me where properties have gone down in value like that. It's never happened.
You're right about that. But
you know what has happened? We have stocks out there that are almost completely worthless right now. And a few years ago, they were, flying high. But real estate doesn't do that. You know why real estate doesn't do that? Because what they tell you in law school is they're not making any more land. It's done.
That's right.
The earth has as much land as it's going to have.
True.
We're not making any more. So our population continues to increase. We need to continue to build. People need places to live. Real estate is going to continue to be a stable investment. Not only that, but our tax code is set up in such a way that encourages home ownership. It encourages investment in real estate. That's why we have bonus depreciation. That's why we have Section 179. That's why we have Section 162, 163. That's why we can do cost segregation studies, because Congress wants us to invest and provide housing. The government can't provide enough housing. There's no way. They just cannot do it. So they want individuals, private individuals like you and me, to go out and build or buy properties and rent them out. Absolutely. It's encouraged in the tax code. And not only that, there's a silver lining to you as well. Your investment portfolio gets diversified. You're providing housing to people. You're bettering communities. I really think that if you're in it for the long haul, look at real estate investing.
I tend to agree with you. Now, I want to ask your opinion on something else. What if you're thinking, I'm not all that comfortable investing in individual properties myself? One of the things that have emerged over the last couple of years are real estate investment groups. So you can be a bit more hands-off. I kind of look at it like a real estate investment mutual fund of sorts. Like, what do you think of those?
I think those type of investments are wonderful. I would encourage people to look into apartment syndication deals. I've got a few clients that are putting together their own deals, and what they're doing is they're taking investors and they're going in and buying, a 400-unit apartment complex. They're increasing its value by updating it with granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, new landscaping, and you get a return every month or every quarter. And then in a few years, there'll be a refinance out of the deal and you'll get your money back and you'll have cash flowed the entire time. So those kind of deals are out there, and they allow you to be purely passive. You don't have to take the phone calls about the clogged toilet. You don't have to worry about, oh no, the refrigerator's on the fritz. You don't have to worry about that stuff. You're just an investor in real estate.
Did you call that an apartment syndication deal?
Yeah, apartment syndications. It's a way that people invest in multifamily real estate, like apartments, duplexes, townhomes that are connected. It's apartment syndication. And what they're doing is they're looking for investors to come in and create enough of a down payment for them to go buy a $20 million portfolio. And they go in with that money and they fix up the properties. They slowly raise rents to market rates if the rents are depressed. And as an investor, you get a dividend and you get your money back. And if they ever sell it, you get a portion of the profits.
That's fantastic. So now, how would you differentiate a real estate investment group from a real estate investment trust, which is another popular real estate investing tool?
Yes. So you're talking about REITs, and REITs are an animal unto themselves. It's a trust that, sometimes they're publicly traded. You can buy them on the stock exchange, through your Fidelity account or your Schwab account. You can look for REITs and you can invest in them. And you have no say in what's invested in, but they will kick out dividends, and they're for the benefit of the investors. So REITs are mostly, my experience, they've been publicly traded. I know there's some that aren't, but again, it's very similar to that. But as opposed to apartment syndication, where you know what the deal is, you know what you're investing in. With REITs, you really don't know what you're investing in. You know kind of what they invest in because they can invest in anything, but they're raising a fund to do that. Alternatively to that, you see the hedge funds out of Manhattan and Wall Street now buying up real estate left and right. They are just going in and buying as many single-family homes as they can get their hands on. And there's a reason to pay attention to that. If Wall Street thinks it's a good idea, maybe you should start looking at it too, because these guys are raising billions of dollars to go in and buy single-family homes.
For sure. And I was going to ask you about that. One of the companies I know that's doing that is BlackRock, and I'm not sure. The article that I read had an angle to it, which the angle was that corporate investors are artificially raising the price of single-family homes and are pricing people out of the market, which was what the article was saying. And I was wondering how you felt about that. So basically, kind of like gentrification without the policy.
Kind of, but I would disagree, because let me tell you about a client I had that lived on Long Island. She went under contract for a property here in Tennessee, south of Nashville, about 30 minutes. And she went under contract for that property for $353,000. She didn't want to buy it. She actually called me asking if I could get her out of the contract, and she was willing to lose her earnest money, which is about $3,500 the time she went into the deal. And I'm like, well, do you know what the market's doing right now? Are you sure you want to do that? Why don't you let me make a few phone calls and see if we could sell that property for you? And then you make some money and go do with it what you want. So I made one phone call to my real estate agent, who I know has some hedge fund relationships. He said, give me 2 hours. I'll get back to you. 2 hours later, he calls me back. He says, here's what we can do. We'll buy that property for $430,000, 21-day close. All she has to do is go to closing, close it, and in 21 days from that closing date, we will buy that property. She never made her first payment. She walked away from that deal with $93,000 in her pocket.
Wow.
Yes. So they're buying the properties, and they're willing to rent them at market rates. they're willing to take the short-term loss to get the long-term appreciation on the properties.
Okay.
So I would say that, I don't think what you read and what I've experienced are matching up, but I do think, yes, hedge funds are definitely coming in. They're buying properties. They might be buying a little bit ahead of the market, but they're not charging exorbitant rates for rent.
Well, I was thinking when I read that how is that possible? Because you would price everybody out of the market at some point if the rent was too high.
You're right. I mean, and they're buying these properties to cash flow them, right?
Right.
Now, they're not going to make the 1%. They might be making 0.5%, but they're willing to make that 0.5% and slowly move the market rates on rent up over time. So, they're willing to take the loss in the short term to make a win in the long term.
And that makes sense. So if you are an individual investor and it's your first time out and you're thinking, I'm going to venture out and invest in a property, how do you go about calculating your potential return? Is there a simple way to do that? Are there online calculators that'll help you do that? How does that work?
There is absolutely an online calculator, and I use it all the time. It's dealcheck.io. And this is a platform that is free, and it is incredible. It will give you every single metric you want. You can put in your own metrics and figure out if that deal works for you. But for me and my wife, we kind of use a back-of-the-envelope metric. We want to make 1%. So if I buy that property for $100,000, I want to make $1,000 rent a month.
Okay.
And that's kind of our metric. That's why places like Chattanooga, Jackson, Memphis, Knoxville are so great in the Tennessee market, because you can go to Jackson, you can buy a $42,000 property, and you can rent out each side for $800 a side. So $1,600 gross, and you're in for 42 plus maybe 10,000 in upgrades. So you're in for 52. That's a win. That is definitely a win. That almost is the 3% rule.
That's a huge win. No, that's a huge win if you do the math. I think that many people find it intimidating because they feel like real estate investing is always going to involve very large numbers.
And you know what? It can, but it doesn't have to. Get a partner. Go in halves on a property. There are ways to get into real estate fairly cheaply. And with as much equity that's tied up in homes right now, tap into your equity line of credit and just go buy a property. But what I will tell people is aim small, miss small. Don't go out and buy the massive property that you think you're going to make a windfall on. Buy the 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you can buy reasonably, put a good family in there, and get a reasonable amount of rent. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
So that's very good.
Don't be greedy. Even when you're selling a property, I know you want the highest and best, but you need to be reasonable. And what I think we're seeing is a return to reasonableness in the market. Everybody has been like a hog at the trough lately. Well, now we're getting back to reasonableness. Now we're getting back to, okay, there's going to be an arm's length transaction here, and you can negotiate terms now. And I think that's great for everybody. I think it's great for real estate investing.
No, and I think you are absolutely right about that. So tell people where they can get in touch with you, where they can follow you, and where they can avail themselves of your services and buy your book.
Yes, ma'am. So the book is available on Amazon. It's Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding, Funding, and Managing Real Estate Investments. You can also follow me on www.briantboyd.com. And my law firm is Boyd and Wills. So it's www.boydwills.com. And we talk to real estate investors all the time. We help them with the real estate matters. And we really just want to see you succeed.
I love it.
Honestly, this is something everybody can do. You were talking about house hacking earlier, and I think that's a great way to get started in real estate. If you have, a basement you're not using, rent it out.
Right? Start somewhere. I have friends who did that, and they're doing quite well.
Absolutely. And, if you have a question, just ask people. The real estate community wants people to ask, to get involved. I want everybody that invests in real estate to have that long-term wealth, that they don't have to rely upon Social Security when they retire, or they don't have to just look at their 401k and say, oh, well, it went down this month. I may not be able to take that vacation in your golden years. No, I want you to have that income coming in. I really do.
I love it. Attorney and author Brian Boyd, thank you for being on the show this evening. Look out for the show as a podcast. I'll send you the link, and I'll post it on all our social media. Thank you so much for being on the show this evening.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Have a great night.
You too, ma'am.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
This broadcast of Money Talk with Melanie was previously recorded. Money Talk with Melanie brought to you by MrCreditRepair.biz.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'd like to thank my guests this evening. Zack Ballinger and Brian Boyd did a stellar job as guests on the show this evening. Make sure that you check out Money Talk with Melanie. If you missed any parts of the show, check it out as a podcast here on 98.7 The Coast website, or also anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Be sure to tune in to Money Talk with Melanie next week, where we'll have two new wonderful guests. Remember, all of this is important because after all, it's your money.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.